Hi Elisa, and welcome to Blue Notes. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Brett. Lovely to be here.
How has your experience in previous roles and perhaps other organisations kind of helped you come to this job, and what sort of lessons have you learnt that you'll bring with you?
Well, in my nearly 30 years of experience, when I first started actually working, I wanted to essentially develop deep expertise in talent and culture. But what I knew then, if I was going to do that, I would also want to develop my breadth of experience because I had depth in talent and culture. But how do I develop breadth of experience? So I did that through working in various industries. So I worked in automotive, pharmaceutical, FMCG, professional services. So I think the first lesson is, when thinking about a career, what is your technical expertise, but also how do you develop breadth over your career? So that was the approach that I had. And then one of the most foundational experiences actually I had was working at Toyota. It was really an incredible leadership experience, working on things like when the Toyota company globally implemented what was referred to as the Toyota Way globally across 300,000 people. And I was involved in that work and really learning about the importance of culture, of mutual trust and respect, and also a process called Nemawashi, which is about consulting and listening. So there was a number of lessons that I learnt at Toyota which were quite foundational that I will take into this role. And then more recently, or in the last 15 years working at ANZ, I've worked in a number of different divisions, both in customer facing, but also in technology and operations. And I think that's given me a really good understanding of how the bank operates, but also built my networks and of relationships of people to work with and learn from.
And the workplace more broadly has changed, so significantly in the last 5 years. How do you think about that, and what do you see as the most important factors for big organisations to attract and retain talent?
Yeah, so the pandemic has obviously created a huge transformation, and what it did is essentially across the globe created millions of experiences of how we can work, which has been, I think, a fantastic opportunity. But it has really challenged our thinking in terms of what do I want to do for work, where do I want to work, how do I want to work. So I think it's been such a fundamental shift in understanding people's expectations. And not only the pandemic, but there's other elements of the workforce, such as the role of technology and how that is fundamentally changing our work. And also something else which is generational, more so than recent, but the role of women at work and how that has transformed the way we live and we are at home and having dual careers, and how we need to think about that when we work. So I think there's been a number of transformations that we need to consider that then impact people's expectations about work. And it's very important for ANZ to be mindful of those changing expectations and really be in touch with employees, but also potential employees, the best talent, and what will attract and retain. And some of the things that we have learnt recently is well-being and flexibility have really surfaced in the last few years as very high on the list of why people want to join ANZ and why they stay.
You mentioned technology and working in operations before. The pace and speed of digital and new technology is obviously changing things within the workplace as well. How do you think about automation and artificial intelligence and how that might sort of reshape the workforce as we know it?
Yeah, I think about that a lot actually. And look, I think it's an opportunity and a challenge, and many of us can be frightened, I think, of machines taking our role. The London Business School have indicated that in 60% of roles, 1/3 of the tasks in those roles can be replaced through automation and machines. So it's really quite fundamental in terms of the pace of change that we're going through at the moment, particularly with the opportunities with AI. The way I think about it is we need to look forward at the future in terms of what can humans do that machines cannot do. And most likely machines will never be able to do a couple of things. One is demonstrate empathy, two is creativity, and the third element is complex decision making. And so when we think about AI and machines, and if we're frightened about that they can take away some of the tasks that we do at work, there's also an opportunity for us to think about really strengthening the muscle of those skills that machines cannot do in the future. So how do we reskill our workforce to think about creativity, empathy, and complex problem solving? Because they are the skills that we really need more of in the future, and that as humans, machines cannot replace.
And you touched on this a little earlier as well, the role of women in the workforce, but as a senior leader, how important is supporting and empowering women into leadership roles, and how do you create a culture of inclusion at ANZ?
So this is really important, and I'm very passionate about equality and diversity, and importantly creating a sense of inclusion and belonging at work. But it's not just about women, it's broader than that. It's regardless of gender, race, ethnicity, political views, socioeconomic background. I feel very passionate about creating that environment at ANZ where people have that sense of belonging. And I'm very supportive of women and supporting them with their careers, and have spent a lot of focus in my previous role, actually before taking up the group executive role of talent and culture in our institutional bank, in supporting women in leadership. And one element that is very important, it's not just about women, but it's also importantly about supporting men and ensuring that they feel comfortable in doing things like taking parental leave or having flexibility at work themselves. And so absolutely I'm a supporter of women, but I think more broadly, I'm very passionate about equality, diversity, and ensuring everyone has a voice.
So although you've been at ANZ a while, we're keen to know a bit more about you personally. So what drives you both inside and outside work, and what's something that your colleagues might not know about you?
So the reason why I come to work is to be able to create the culture of an inclusive environment so people can really thrive at work. That's really what my passion is. But also equality and everyone having a voice, and being able to influence that environment is really important to me. Personally, I have a husband and two young adult children, and we have a dual career. And one of the things perhaps that people don't know about me, well, some colleagues would know about me, but during my career, and part of this was actually at ANZ, I worked part-time, and also in some of that time I also worked in a job share arrangement. And the reason why I wanted to share that is to provide an example of someone that has done that throughout their career, that has worked flexibly and I guess made decisions of taking time, not as much time at home to when the children were younger, but also I had a situation at one point when I worked part-time when my mother-in-law had a stroke, and I made the decision to reduce my hours and help look after her on a Friday. So it's not only with children, but at different points in our life, we make decisions of when to accelerate with work and when we need that balance at home. And I think it's important to share that example so that people can see that that does not stop you if you work part-time or job share at a point in your life and your career, that it doesn't restrict you or is not a barrier to achieving your goals in the future.
Elisa, thanks very much for your time.
Thank you, Brett.